Hello, everyone. She walked her first runway in the 1940s. She is still walking today at over 90 years old. Carmen Dell'Orefice is not just a model. She is living proof that time does not touch true elegance. With silver hair, regal cheekbones, and a stare carved from marble, she defies every rule the fashion world ever wrote about age. But behind the timeless beauty lies a woman who has survived poverty, betrayal, illness, and abandonment, all while never letting go of grace. She has been called many things: the most beautiful grandmother on earth, fashion's eternal icon, the last of a dying era. But perhaps the most haunting truth is this: she never stopped being beautiful. We just never imagined beauty could look like her. Carmen Dell'Orefice was born in New York City in 1931, in the shadows of the Great Depression. Her beginnings were far from glamorous. Her father, a violinist of Italian descent, abandoned the family when she was young. Her mother, a Hungarian ballet dancer, raised Carmen alone, strict, artistic, and often unstable. Money was scarce, food was inconsistent, love was conditional. Carmen remembers being cold all the time. Her mother would often move them from one small apartment to another, unable to keep up with rent. There were stretches where they slept on friends' floors or survived on a single boiled egg a day. She contracted rheumatic fever as a child, leaving her bedridden for over a year. Even then, she learned early how to sit still, how to disappear inside herself. She was painfully thin and unusually tall. Her classmates mocked her long limbs and pale skin. She felt invisible, or worse, unwanted. But beneath the quiet surface, Carmen was watching, learning. She studied her mother's posture, the way she carried herself like a dancer, even in poverty. She observed how women moved, how beauty could be a form of armor. At 13, Carmen's life changed unexpectedly. She was riding a bus when the wife of a photographer noticed her. Within months, she was on the cover of Vogue. But even as the industry welcomed her, Carmen was still struggling to survive. She walked to shoots because she could not afford subway fare. She modeled in clothes she could never dream of owning. Her paychecks often went straight to rent or food. Her early success was not accompanied by childhood. Carmen dropped out of school and began supporting herself and her mother through modeling. While other girls her age were attending prom, she was being sculpted, lit, and posed under hot lamps for 8 hours straight. And yet she never complained. There was something in Carmen that understood beauty was power, not in the vain, fleeting sense, but in the way a painting is powerful, or a sculpture, or a poem. She carried herself like an artwork in motion, even when the world treated her like a tool. Her childhood gave her resilience, but it also taught her silence, the kind of silence that holds pain like breath, that smiles when hungry, that poses when abandoned. It was the beginning of a lifelong paradox. A woman whose face was worshipped by the world, and yet was constantly learning how to survive it. Carmen Dell'Orefice never planned to become a model. In fact, she did not even know what modeling truly was when it found her. It was the summer of 1944. Carmen was just 13 years old, tall and awkward, riding a New York City bus when fate intervened. A woman seated across from her kept staring. Her name was Carol Douglas, the wife of photographer Herman Lanshoff. She approached Carmen, scribbled down her husband's name, and told her to call him. Carmen, unsure and skeptical, tucked the note away. But her mother, ever the dreamer, saw an opportunity. Soon after, Carmen found herself in Lanshoff's studio, where the camera met her angular features for the first time. She was thin from illness, still growing into her frame, but something about her presence was striking, unusual, timeless. It was not about looking beautiful. It was about being something more. The test photos made their way to Vogue, and in 1946, Carmen appeared on the cover at just 15 years old. It was surreal. She was suddenly in the same publication that defined elegance, photographed by legends like Erwin Blumenfeld and Horst Pete Horst. But behind the scenes, her life was anything but glamorous. Despite the Vogue covers, she was still too poor to afford the subway. Condé Nast sent runners to deliver her modeling assignments by bicycle. She was paid in clothing, not cash, and much of what she earned went straight to her mother. She did not live in luxury. She lived in necessity. And her family life remained difficult. Her mother controlled everything from the shoots she accepted to the money she brought home. Carmen often felt like a product, not a daughter. Modeling became a survival tool, a way to escape the instability of home. But she never let it show. Her earliest shoots required hours of standing still, being sculpted and draped like a statue. She worked with some of the greatest artists of the time. Salvador Dali painted her. Richard Avedon captured her in black and white stillness. She was treated like a canvas, and she learned to play the part. Yet Carmen was more than just a blank page for others to paint on. She developed her own language in front of the camera, a slow blink, a tilt of the chin, a silence that roared. While other models sought to perform beauty, Carmen embodied it with stoicism and strength. She was never the loudest in the room, but the lens always found her. Her aloofness, some said, was elegance. Her restraint, others believed, was wisdom. But the truth was simpler. Carmen had lived through too much to play pretend. As her career began to take shape, she quickly realized how fleeting fashion could be. One minute, she was on every editorial page. The next, a younger, fresher face was being celebrated. But she adapted. She learned how to reinvent without losing herself a skill that would later become her superpower. In a world that demanded girls, Carmen became a woman. And in doing so, she redefined what a model could be. From a sickly child on a crowded bus to the face of mid-century glamour, her rise was not meteoric, but meticulous, earned, endured. By the 1950s, Carmen Dell'Orefice had become more than a model. She was an image, a symbol, a myth made flesh. She graced the covers of Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, and Life magazine with a poise that transcended the page. Her face was described as marble come to life, flawless symmetry, a neck like a swan, and cheekbones that defied the light. She became a favorite of the most revered photographers Irving Penn, Cecil Beaton, Richard Avedon. Each found something different in her silence. To designers, she was the canvas of perfection. Dior adored her restraint. Balenciaga appreciated her stillness. She modeled not with motion, but with presence, as if every step she took was carved in slow motion. Every glance calculated like a sculpture's angle. She did not seduce, she mesmerized. But Carmen's greatest impact was not in walking, it was in standing. She stood like history, like an echo from another era, and yet, she never felt frozen in time. What made Carmen's peak so unique was that it did not rely on youth. She was in her 20s, yes, but she carried the mystery of a woman twice that age. While the fashion industry worshipped freshness and naivety, Carmen brought elegance, gravity, and a softness born of suffering. One of her most iconic moments came when she posed for Salvador Dali, becoming both muse and metaphor. In those surreal portraits, Carmen was not simply a model, she was art. By the mid-50s, she had become a mainstay of the industry, known for her refusal to smile, her impeccable posture, and her refusal to play the ingenue. There was always an air of distance to her, not coldness, but control. She was the woman every designer wanted on their runway, and every magazine wanted on their cover. Yet Carmen remained elusive, rarely giving interviews, rarely attending parties. She let the clothes speak, let the silence dress her. She was not chasing stardom. She was surviving it and elevating it. At a time when models were seen as disposable, Carmen became irreplaceable. Because while other faces faded, hers became immortal. In an industry obsessed with the new, Carmen Dell'Orefice built a legacy by refusing to vanish. She did not just challenge the rules, she outlived them. While most models retired before 30, Carmen returned to the runway in her 60s, and not just as a nostalgic figure. She walked for designers like Jean-Paul Gaultier and John Galliano with more poise and magnetism than women half her age. Her white hair, sharp profile, and steel blue gaze became symbols not of aging, but of defiance. Carmen never accepted the expiration date imposed on women. In fact, she made a career out of rejecting it. When the industry whispered that her time was over, she stood taller. When brands feared wrinkles, she showed her hands proudly. When magazines wanted youth, she gave them dignity. And when society begged women to disappear quietly with age, Carmen stepped into the spotlight and stayed. Her career became a protest not loud, but enduring, not angry, but impossible to ignore. She posed nude in her 70s for New York Magazine not as a gimmick, but as a statement. Her body, graceful and unretouched, challenged everything fashion feared: time, truth, transparency. She was not trying to reclaim youth. She was redefining what it meant to be beautiful at every age. In interviews, Carmen spoke with clarity and bite. She mocked the idea that beauty belongs to the young. "We all get old," she once said, "but not everyone gets to do it beautifully." She refused to inject or conceal. She let her age show, not as decline, but as evolution. While many icons became symbols of a decade, Carmen became something larger, a symbol of persistence, of grace without apology, of survival without bitterness. She turned fashion into a place where age could be seen and celebrated. And she did it all without screaming, without scandals, without rebellion in the traditional sense. Her rebellion was endurance. In a world that discards its women far too early, she never left. Behind Carmen Dell'Orefice's legendary elegance lies a life marked not only by beauty, but by betrayal, heartbreak, and survival. She was married 3 times. None lasted. Her first husband, whom she married at just 20, left her while she was pregnant. Carmen became a single mother, forced to pause her modeling career and take odd jobs to support her daughter. For a time, she worked as a typist and even considered leaving the industry for good. But there was something inside her, that stillness, that fire that refused to fade. Later, she fell in love with photographer Norman Parkinson, though they never married. He helped revive her modeling career in her 40s, photographing her in bold, ageless campaigns that celebrated maturity. But the real blow came much later. In her 70s, Carmen became the victim of a devastating financial betrayal. A longtime friend and investment advisor, someone she trusted for decades, was revealed to be part of Bernie Madoff's infamous Ponzi scheme. She lost nearly all of her life savings. Overnight, the woman who once modeled for Dior and Balenciaga found herself facing financial ruin. But she did not collapse. She returned to work fiercely. Carmen walked runways. She posed for luxury brands. She graced Harper's Bazaar covers once again, this time with silver hair and sharpened wisdom in her eyes. She turned the tragedy into fuel, proving to the world and to herself that reinvention had no expiration date. And through it all, she never showed bitterness, never sought pity. "I've always been a realist," she said. "You do not survive if you are not." Even illness could not dim her light. She endured health challenges, including 2 knee replacements, and yet kept modeling into her 90s. While others would have retreated, she stepped forward, becoming an icon not just of age-defying beauty, but of strength, grace, and adaptability. But perhaps the most haunting truth of all is how little the world understood her silence. Carmen rarely shared her pain. She simply carried it with posture, with poise, and in doing so, she made resilience look like art. Carmen Dell'Orefice did not disappear. She endured. And through every loss, every betrayal, every silent heartbreak, she remained luminous. Carmen Dell'Orefice is not a relic of fashion's past. She is its prophecy. In a world that worships youth, she became timeless. In an industry that discards its muses, she became the exception. Her legacy is not just in the pages of Vogue or the silence of her gaze. It is in the very idea that beauty does not have an age limit. She once said, "I am a cover girl, but I am also the woman who gets up at 5 a.m. and keeps going." Because that is what real beauty does. It continues. Today, Carmen remains a symbol of what is possible when grace meets grit. She has inspired generations of women to age without apology, to reclaim their reflection, and to understand that elegance is not about perfection. It is about presence. Her face has changed. Her bones ache more, but her stare, still unforgettable. So the next time you see a wrinkle in the mirror, think of her. The silver hair, the defiant walk, the woman who turned survival into art. Carmen did not chase the future. She became it.